Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. As usual, my friend Doug Keck of EWTN joins us to talk about faith and culture. Doug, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me, as always.
Always a joy. Undoubtedly, everyone has seen different reports of what happened during the attempted assassination of the president. And tell us about what we know about the manifesto. What was the intent of the alleged shooter?
Well, it's pretty clear. I mean, that he was clearly upset and disturbed over the direction this presidency was taking the country, and the people surrounding the president, he believed, were responsible for these issues. Seems to be there's some connection with Ukraine. There's obviously connection with Israel in the sense of the Palestinians. Maybe something related to Iran as well, but somebody who clearly had an axe to grind over what he perceived to be the kind of fascistic, king-like actions of Donald Trump, much of which has been trumpeted on the left as being this intolerable situation. And clearly what we're seeing here is the manifestation of when you keep calling somebody Adolf Hitler or a dictator, that you will find people, as we have seen with several attempts on his life, to think that they are doing a public service by eliminating this person or the people around them, and possibly at least putting a scare into them to maybe back off where they are. And I think, unfortunately, from a Catholic perspective, we just have to look at it as Bishop Coakley talked about with the violence. But the reality is these kinds of violent things, we always put gun in front of it. It's violence, period, whether there's gun involved or not. But the real issue is the kind of rhetoric that has been going on. And, a lot of people don't like Donald Trump and have thought very bad things of him. Now, unfortunately, because so many people are siloed into where they get their news, they are unaware that the Russian thing was a hoax, and they are unaware that he really is least involved with Epstein than most of the politicians. And lots of things like that. You saw the pedophile reference and rapist reference, which clearly comes out of that Epstein story. And just the idea that everybody is being demonized. And again, we go back to the whole idea of the way the politics is handled today, where you just, you don't try to dialogue. I mean, the Pope talks about dialogue and the church talks about dialogue, but in political and real life, dialogue doesn't really exist, and you really are dealing with, that whole idea that you destroy your enemy. You don't try to make them, come to your way of thinking. If they don't agree right away, then you demonize them. You say they're crazy, or they say they're Hitler. And you get the Saul Alinsky-like attacks, which is really why EWTN did that program about Wolf and Sheep's Clothing years ago, was for people to understand this is why things are so, evil in the sense of these discussions and how quickly they get out of control, because we really have tried to do what the Nazis did to the Jews, which is to make them less than people. So you got people, even comedians, saying, "Oh, well, so-and-so, First Lady's going to be a widow soon." And this idea of people asking for somebody to die or be killed as if this was a video game or a TV show.
You raise so many really important points, Doug, and chief among which is, you're right, we do have the great benefit of constitutionally recognized freedom of speech, and that right comes from God. But with that right comes a tremendous moral responsibility. We seem to be championing the former, but we've forgotten the latter.
Right. Well, I think you also have, and clearly there was, besides all of these kind of hoaxes that are put up. I mean, there's even recently stories that came out about, who was behind some of the things that went on, the burying of the laptop and all of these things that everybody who thought this was going on were told they were crazy, and it turns out it was true. It turned out that these conspiracies that people said, well, you're kind of crazy, whether it's on COVID or other things, turned out to be, if not 100% true, at least partially correct. So the trouble is right now on the left and right, nobody trusts anything. Mm-hmm. Nobody trusts what anybody says. Nobody can trust what anybody sees with AI. They can make you see and hear anything somebody wants you to see or hear. And by the time somebody gets out the fact that it was wrong, it's circulating the web. The old story about, a lie gets around the world by the time the truth gets its shoes on in the morning. It's already out there and around, and that's just what we're dealing with. And I think, unfortunately, there has been some of the rhetoric, and certainly, Trump has been a big proponent in many cases of some hard rhetoric. But I think there was also a political decision, clearly, that was made within about 6 or 9 months ago, where the whatever focus groups the Democrats did came back and said, well, you're not being angry enough. You're not being doing enough vitriol there. We need to really be angry and vitriolic, just like they are. And you see this whole thing ramping up with, again, all this incredible demonization of people on the right, and especially the people who are running the administration and Donald Trump himself personally. I mean, clearly, regardless of what you think of him, the reality is the man could cure cancer, and there would be articles all over about explaining how he didn't cure it fast enough, or he didn't, or some other it cost too much. There's no matter what it is. I mean, it's the same one with people claiming, well, it got staged. See, they did this to stage the sympathy so he can build a ballroom at the White House. Well, I think the people who were the White House correspondents might beg to differ that this was staged. And maybe that'll be a positive thing, because, it's one thing when the chattering class can point fingers and encourage people to get violence against other people. But when they're, caught in the crossfire, maybe it'll make them think twice.
The other thing that, as you've rightly pointed out as well, that we need to remember is our rhetoric has gotten so incendiary that not only can they not find a single good thing for people who hate President Donald Trump or any other politician for that matter, we've now escalated things. This is the first time in U.S. history that we've had 3 credible assassination attempts on a sitting president. Can you please speak to that?
Well, I think the problem you have is the country being so divided, and again, because people these days get their news from different groups. These people are walking around as Eric Hoffer's true believers. From my famous book, they just believe that this person is evil and they need to be taken out, and if they don't do it, somebody else should do it, and if it happens, they'd applaud it, and there's no breaking through. That's the part we've lost, is the ability for people to say, and this is something we have to challenge ourselves on too, because sometimes people we don't like do good things, and we should credit them for when they do at least something positive, and not be like, well, they're doing that only because they want this, and you get the same kind of situation. You have to be open to the truth also. Sometimes you find out the way you understood it isn't exactly right. So,
Doug, thank you very, very much for your time and your salience in commenting on these things. My guest has been Doug Keck, Emeritus President and COO of EWTN. And host of EWTN Bookmark. We've been talking about the recent assassination attempt on President Donald Trump and other Republican politicians and what that teaches us about our Catholic virtue in the public sphere. Stay tuned, I'm Marcus Peter.